So hey, good afternoon, people. Getting a little muggy out today, so that's okay. The waiting to do a video go in the house. So I just want to talk about the people and possibly you feeling the same way. So there's a lot of people that will not admit that they don't want to wake up here anymore. Since the insanity of the fear and the mask, the lockdowns and the lies, they barked everybody up the tree to pick the coconuts and their apples and whatever. So a lot of people, so the alcohol, people are buying alcohol still are off the chain, and people are using any kind of crutch they can just to get through the day. They may not admit it, but a lot of them don't even want to wake up and don't want to wake up here. And I see that and understand that the Lord showed me that. So I don't blame anybody for using a crutch. But we really have to get up and out of bed and try to encourage, even if we have no encouragement, even for ourselves. Um, the thing that I have is I have the revelation of Jesus Christ that I know for a fact things are changing. They just don't appear to be at the moment in the natural realm. But behind the scenes, God has a whole lot of people working for the betterment of humanity. And there's a lot of people that are talking about the wealth being shifted, the wealth of the wicked being shifted. But you must understand, I must say this 100,000 more times, that if you're not about humanity, you're not about fathering and mothering the people, you will not partake of the wealth transfer, the wealth shift, they call it. Because it's all this transitional time as it's being shifted. It's not going to be shifted like a mother load either. It's already there, ready to be shifted, and it's just barely a trickle on the faucet at the moment. So we need to enter in, but it's all about helping your neighbors and your family and your friends and doing the right thing. So there's a lot of people who prospered on the downside, like the big box stores. A lot of ministries still prospered to no end. And it's like you need to watch a good Hallmark movie. So there's that movie about the Secret Santa, and the girl finds out it's her dad, and there's several of them out there. Um, so they try to find humanitarian efforts, like they already made all the money in the world, and they realize they're on their deathbed, which is kind of late because a lot of people stored up bigger barns, got a 70-inch television, and got a bigger popcorn maker and whatever, and but they didn't try to help their neighbors in any way, shape, or form, and it could have been something minor. Could have been something a little bit more than minor, like maybe they don't even have paint on their house. Maybe it's all peeling. Maybe you could have very easily afforded to go over there, and it might have not been the paint, but if you went over there and guess always a distraction, huh? So it's like the county mower. I didn't know the county mowed the ditches over here. We always had to mow our own. So pray that he comes back and mows my ditch. Okay, so back to the without distraction. Hopefully that people are so oppressed and depressed. So as the enemy puts out oppression, bad word, wrong vision, to oppress the people, then as it comes in and in and in, then they receive it in their eyes and their ears. Then they speak it and they become depressed. Don't want to wake up in the morning. You don't want to get so drunk till they pass out. And hopefully not wake up in the morning. So you have to understand this, and there's a lot of them. There's even a lot of wealthy people because they do not have the revelation of Jesus Christ. They do not know that Jesus has purchased the whole earth two days ago, 2,000 years ago. And we're entering the third day, the restoration day, resurrection day, the book of Acts day. to where the Holy Spirit being poured out in thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands and millions and even billions added to the family of God. And we've all done a terrible job to some degree. And I asked the Lord about this, and said, Lord, are you talking to me about me? He said, yes. And, it's just a fact, like we're afraid to tell the people, we're afraid to tell the right vision because we don't know how soon it'll be. But he said, get ready, and be ready. So at a moment's notice so if you're not ready, then you won't partake of the shift. And if you're not about humanitarian efforts about his children, and I mean, I'm not talking about little children, I'm talking about new Christians coming in. I mean, they could be 100 and some years old. It could be 80, 70, 60, whatever. And, God's going to take away the tears in the eyes. Every knee will bow and every tear will be dried up. And the earth will start being shifted. And the environment will be cleaned up. All the pollution from, a couple 100 years, 150 years, whenever they started dropping all the crap in the rivers and streams. And, we're literally destroying our water supply, even though we know how to filter it. And, the water represents the spirits. So the spirits in the area are bitter. So that's the revelation of Elisha when he comes into a city, and it seems nice, seems pleasant, beautiful countryside, just like up here in South Carolina, beautiful countryside, but the water is bitter. So not only the streams and whatever are polluted. She talked in the last video about getting new food because our food has been adulterated and corrupted and has poisons in it. So, like you can analyze water and find pharmaceuticals in water. You can analyze paper money, and almost every dollar has drugs, little residues of drugs on it. So, the evil policy enforcers, the police, they ask people if they're carrying any large sums of money. And some people are so honest, they'll say yes, and then they'll confiscate it, and they'll have the dog sniff it. Well, it's because there's residue of drugs on it, and then they take it and said, like conspiracy, whatever. And it's really hard to get your money back once they take it away. And some people are, burying $100,000 or a couple $100,000 because they don't trust banks, they don't trust the system anymore. And if the powers to be, the evil ones that are in the government, to even lower governments, whatever policy enforcers, which are police, they'll confiscate it. So the oppression causes depression, causes everybody to get mad and angry, and even causes murder, because anger begot hatred and begot murder. That's where, because God said to Cain, he says, if your countenance means your how do you say it? Your attitude. Be this, you'll be okay. If you take it in stride, you'll be okay. But it was translated to your countenance, so his countenance went dark. And he murdered his brother. So there's suicide is off the chain. Over there, what they say, over 500,000 people left California because of Gavin Newsom. He's their front guy. He's just a puppet. He's the marionette. He's a Pinocchio. So you got all these Pinocchios out there standing on God's stages, but there's a whole bunch of evil people behind the scenes pulling the strings. And I told you God's going to cut all the strings off, and the Pinocchios will drop over dead. There's going to be a lot of death, and for many reasons. And I pray that you wake up in the morning feeling good. Sun is shining, the sky is blue. Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Say a little prayer for me, whatever, the chasing the clouds away. So, maybe play some 60s tunes, get you up and encouraged, because, I've always tried to encourage, even though the devil tried to, put me in foreclosure and tried to take my house, tried to, blew up my motor in my truck and everything. And like I said, even recently, they stole my tools. And I'm not too concerned about it because they took a curse with them, a bad, really bad curse. And I'd hate to see what's happening to them now. And then I'll get blessed on the other side. I'll get some good jobs, and I'm already started replacing the tools. So I'm not worried about it. I'm not asking anybody to help me out or anything because, gotta provide no matter what. But to encourage, can you imagine not wanting to wake up, get so drunk or so high on heroin and fentanyl? Fentanyl is the devil's death drug. Went from heroin, which the drugs are, like I say, the drugs and stuff are like a feminine thing. A lot of people don't realize that because it ties into the revelation of the women. Like I keep telling the women, reread Mary, reread Elizabeth, reread whose phone call it is, reread about the revelation of Mary. So Mary's about the redemption of women, like ever since she was really little, she just loved God and had angels and stuff ministering to her left and right. And she was privileged because she always woke up with a good attitude and, was pure at heart. Wouldn't pull the wings off a fly, even though I hate house flies. I might pull the wings off a fly. But so the weapon form, our weapons are not carnal, but major unto the Lord. So the women need to reread that, and the men need to realize when Jesus said that we have to love the wife as he loved the church. Now, we're talking about the ecclesia. We're talking about okay, so there's a lot of stuff that wasn't totally written about in the Bible, the history, that will repeat, even though we're breaking the bonds of history, that there was a lot of women behind the scenes that were helping prepare the meals. It goes all the way back to Passover and Egypt and whatever. The women were always very domestic, and the men went out and slayed the beasts and slaughtered the chickens, the goats, and cleaned them up, to a certain degree. And then the women might have did the details, like chopped up the meat into morsels, stew beef, and so a lot of women that had servants' hearts and have servants' hearts that was very much needed, not only to mother and nurture and maybe cook a good meal, and she does it in love. I mean, that meal is blessed. That like the meal is holy, just like how we bless our meals. So you got to look at the other side for a moment. That and then the homeless is off the chain. Like Michael was out in California, and there's certain streets you can't park on. Then you go on other streets that you can park on, and there's hundreds, if not 1,000 cars within a few mile stretch, and people are sleeping in their cars, and then they're driving into town to go to work because they can't afford a house. They can't afford hardly anything. And if they have a tent and they don't pick it up during the day, a homeless person will steal your tent and pitch it somewhere else. Pitched. You think of pitch, pitch your tent, and then they take it. They steal it. So it's been pitched. It's been taken. So it's a lot worse than you think. So, I mean, if you have a roof over your head and you have food and you have food for neighbors or whatever, you don't have to just totally go out and offer food to neighbors. You need to go over and say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm your neighbor, just want to check on you. Let me know if I can help you out. And you might be something small, like, you need to give them a pot roast, or maybe bring over casserole like you do when you get a new neighbor. So the simplicity of being a man and woman of God, a father and mother of God. And a lot of people don't look at it because, and then you have a lot of rich people who don't want for anything in this world, but they have not Jesus, so they have nothing. They have nothing. They have no excitement. They have nothing to live for. And a lot of them are just all doped up waiting to die and get cancer because of the bitterness and the unforgiveness causes cancer. Makes the body bitter, just like I told you, the rivers and streams being bitter. The body gets bitter, and then poisoned. Then you get cancer and die. You get all kinds of diseases and die because of unforgiveness. So a lot of people don't know how to get breakthrough. So you need to tell them how to get breakthrough and minister to them, and maybe just need to bring over a sandwich or go buy them a sandwich and talk to them and fellowship, because so many people have no hope, no hope. And these goat cities, the goat states, like some of them, I can't say some of them. Jesus taking over through his people to where there'll be change, but all these leadership has to go down. Believe they have to go down. Believe God's cutting the puppet strings off. Believe that they'll go to jail. Believe that the marshal, because we're under marshal, and have to fragment that to say the latter part now law. And just because you don't see it in this natural realm doesn't mean we are not there. God's trying to be gentle on the minds of the people, because if they knew what was really going on behind the scenes, because when there's any interference with government, Marshall has to take over. So yeah, it's all good though. So just because you don't see them on the street corner doesn't mean we're not there. So the world is not being run by the puppets, okay? And in the background, they're weeding out the garden, the tares. And, a lot of people have heard in the spirit the song Boom Shakalaka Boom, Boom Shakalaka Boom, that I forget the rest of it, but I think the chorus was that, and that means boom, boom, boom. They're marching them. They're marched out of office and into the not here anymore. So it'd be easier if I could talk very straight up, but then the video won't get put out here. So I laugh instead of cry, but I cry enough for the souls of the people, and we all need to cry for the souls of the people. Some of them can't even cry anymore. I went and prayed over houses and cars, trains, planes, automobiles, whatever. I went to car dealerships and laid hands on hundreds of cars, and the salesman wondered what I'm doing. So I just said, I just want this cool car. Can I test drive it? Yeah. And but they didn't know I was just there to pray. They were hoping to get a car sold, but sorry, I was there undercover to pray in the cars, over the cars, to help people, because they couldn't even, the Lord said they were so depressed and oppressed, they couldn't even pray for a car, even a used car. They don't have a car. They don't have a car to sleep in. There's a lot of single mothers out there have no cars, don't know how they're going to feed their children. And we have 3 generations living in one house because they can't afford to have a house. So the enemy's imploding all this stuff, and then God's getting ready to bring it all into the kingdom. The kingdom come, the will be done into God's people. And the insanity of it all, I told you that there's enough house for every man, woman, and children, child, 20 some years ago, and they're still building all these houses and apartments. So there's more than enough. And then there's ghost towns. There's ghost towns that, we could go in and purchase really cheap, 200,000-300,000, but I'm just a handyman carpenter. I just have a couple of nickels to rub together. Well, we could literally go out and buy a ghost town for $200,000-300,000 and start bringing in people. If we could revitalize it and somehow get some economics going, we could bring them in and we could all help rebuild the desolations of many generations. That's why reread Isaiah 60 and 61, mainly 61, and go back to 60. So read the whole chapter of Isaiah 61, the desolations of many generation, is the people's devastated and fragmented and destroyed. Nonetheless, the houses that have been left for dead, and there's tons of ghost towns in California. They're leaving in droves. There was 500,000 over a couple of years. Now they're more likely going to be over 1 million leave before the end of the year in just this one. What are we looking at? 7 months. And because they can't take it anymore, because they keep increasing the taxes, they keep letting all the illegals there. They're paying the illegals, and they're surviving really well, but while God's people are being starved out. They're living really well while God's people are being starved out. So the insanity of helping the ones that are just burdensome and don't even want to do anything. And then in New York, the same thing. The motels and the hotels are filled with illegals, and they're buying them dinner and everything else. And the management and everything has left because, they're not cleaning their apartments. They're not cleaning their toilets. They're not cleaning anything. They're just getting a free ride, and they're destroying everything. And they're breeding cockroaches and rats and everything. Where just even a couple, 2-3 years ago, I mean, these were clean, preened motels, and now they're just infested with cockroaches and rats and mice and everything else because there's no cleanliness, there's no godliness, there's no maintenance. And my job, I've been in the maintenance field all my life, so we look at things from a different angle and look to see what we can do to help people and help get their houses in order. And we're talking natural houses, and that gives me a shoe in the door to see if I can pray for them directly. If not, I'll pray indirectly over their property and pray for their blessings over their property without them even knowing it, if they will not allow me to open the door spiritually. So I'm going to leave that on the table for you to chew on. We need to encourage no matter what. We need to get out of bed and go to work no matter what. We need to go out and check on the neighbor no matter what. I mean, for all you know, there's a corpse in the house next door. It might have been dead for 6 months. You wonder what the smell was, okay? And it's sad because they may not have no husbandmen or no children or whatever. And if you would have came over, 6 months earlier and got a rapport with them, they may have given you the keys to their house. Because I've had many people that, were bitchy. You try to minister to them and they scream and yell at you, and you just love them no matter what, pray for them no matter what. And next thing you know, they see you enough times that you really care. Then they realize you care, and then they allow you to help them out. And then next thing you know, they'll give you the keys to the kingdom. They'll give you the keys to their homes, cars. And they had no children, and they always wanted somebody to leave it to, but they thought nobody loved them. That's why they were so mean. That's why they were so grouchy. That's why they were screaming and yelling. That's why they acted like a Karen. There's no Karen and Karen anymore. So everything's backwards. So God bless you. Love you. Appreciate you. Keep on praying. Keep it believing. Keep a needed floor and an ear to heaven. Amen.